Welcome everybody to another episode from the workshop. Like I said in a couple of episodes ago, I said I was going to turn this into a gravel car, so that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to show you some of the things that we've got, which is gravel wheels. We got rear springs. I'm going to strip one corner, one leg off the car, and I'm going to just strip it down and re-grease it and put it all back together. Just a simple re-grease, and then I'm going to raise the platform, and then we're going to put it back together. We can turn this into a gravel car without buying too many bits. I think I bought some springs that are a bit taller, but the rest of it we can use the bits that we already had, just modifying them slightly, like raising the front. We'll keep the shocks, we'll get some different wheels, and I just want to put some more underfloor protection on it, just to protect some of the inside the arches where the looms are and that. They'd been taken off for the tarmac car, so I'd like to put some back on. I haven't got those for this episode. So first of all, I've got this. This is photocopied from a good friend of mine, Jeff Jones, from Jeff Jones Motorsport. That is actually his car back in the day. He was a works driver for Nissan. I'm going to get him on the channel at some point so we can have a chat about ex-Nissans and all the other cars that he worked with. But this is a copy of the build sheet and the build specs for the Nissan Micra Challenge car. Some of the bits on here, we've got the Bilstein damper type, we've got bump stop, mainspring, helper spring, roll bar, platform height, ride height, cambers, toe, caster, all the things that we need are all on this sheet here. So we're going to copy that and we're going to use that as like a base setting. So we can set it to that and then we'll go and test it. And if we want to modify it, or if I feel like I want to modify it slightly, then we can do that at the test. Or we can find out at the test what we want to do and do it back at the workshop. So that is what I'm going to go off today. I'm going to go off that. Let's get some tools out. Ignore the dented wing, that needs sorting too. Also ignore the yellow paint off the Darien that is on my front wheel. You'll forget about that. Bear with me on this one because I'm doing this live. I've not like loosened everything off like wheeler dealers or something like that. I'm actually jumping in. I've done plenty of them, so it's not going to be that complicated. But yeah, there might be a couple of knuckle slips and things. Oh look, there's where my tread used to be. So we proper burnt them out. Look at those big lumps of rubber on there like that. That's where it's got hot. So they are good for the bin then. I'm not going to rattle gun everything. 17. I'm going to do everything by hand. Don't like using the gun on everything. So firstly, I'm going to loosen everything and then I'm going to pull it off. So I'm going to loosen these. I'm going to loosen the top ones. And then once I'm happy, I'll then pull it off. Right, so these are all loose now. I'm happy with that. I'm going to drop it back down. I'm going to undo the top. I should have done it the other way around, but who cares? It's quite windy outside. You might hear the rattling of the doors. It's also winter, so that's why, if you notice, I am wrapped up warm and I've got my beanie hat on and there's leaves and wetness in the workshop. That's what happens in Wales. It rains. But I'm going to undo these completely now, this top mount. There's one. 15mm sockets on these top mounts. That's quite odd. There it goes. So we'll keep them there ready. There's no adjustment on there, they're just bolted directly. So right, back to here. I've undone these. What I will do as well before I put the last bolt is brake pipe is on a cable tie there, so I'll cut that so I don't stretch it. We'll need to redo all the alignment again after putting the new suspension. Well, I say new suspension. After we put the new suspension setup on, I will be four-wheel aligning it again. So it's pretty simple. 2 bolts at the top, 2 bolts at the bottom, and a cable tie. And that is all that's holding your damper onto the car. So if you've got a spare one and you bend one or or do something on a rally, it's pretty easy to change. We have had to do that a few times in the past. So I put them in order there, top bolt, bottom bolt. You don't have to do it like that, but just so you remember. Once you go from here to somewhere else and you start thinking about something else, it's quite easy to forget little things like that. So there we go. Slide it out, watch out for your brake line. I'm going to get one of these handy things. What are they called? Bungee cord. I'm going to put it around the stud there. And I'm going to put it up there like that. So it just holds it like that. It just takes the pressure off everything as well, because you've got brake lines and drive shafts and things. You don't want them hanging like that, so just takes a bit of pressure off it. Right, here we go. Now this does need a good clean because it has done a rally. Even though I jet washed the car, sometimes you can't get everything done. So let's take this over to the bench and take it apart. Sounds like a good plan, doesn't it? Right, welcome to the bench. So what I'm going to do is take a bit of slack off the spring by loosening these. Now if I wanted to remember what height this was so I could return it to tarmac spec, it's probably best that you measure that platform height, so from the platform to the bottom of the spring, bottom of the adjuster. It's probably best you do that now. For me, I've got everything written down already, so I don't need to do it right now. If you haven't, then just do it. Then at least then you don't have to guess. If you're happy with that setup, you can go back to it if you want. If you're doing multi-surface rallies, you might want to adjust it throughout the rally. Oh, it is tight. So that one's a bit stubborn because it's probably got a load of dirt in it. It's good to keep these threads nice and clean anyway. You should do this after every rally, really. If you've done a tarmac event, they don't tend to get as gunked up as they do on gravel, but we've done about 3 events with this, you know, with the test and that, so it has got all gunked up. So that's taking the pressure off the spring there, but there's a lot of dirt all in here, so this is a well needed job. Right, I've taken the pressure off the spring now. Now I'm going to take the top nut off, so I can take the top mount off. The top mount is on a rose joint. Now that is quite free, that is. I mean, it shouldn't be that free, really. There's a tiny bit of play in it, so what I might do is change these rose joints. You don't have to change the whole top mount. I'll show you in a minute. There's a C-clip holding that rose joint in. You can change those. It's not horrendous, but it is slight play in it. And that'll only get worse, so you might as well do it while it's off. Next job, dans la liste, is we'll take the top mount off. I did say that. So get yourself an M6 and a 19mm in this case. These are all going to be different, but in this case it is. So there we go. Okay, I have loosened this before just to make sure, because sometimes where the Allen key sits in there, when they're on and off so many times, they can round off. So that's just make sure you keep all this in order. So have a nice clean bench and put everything in order. So this is the rose joint, is inside here. So there's a C-clip holding it in there. It might be hard to see, but there's a C-clip there, and then you knock that out. So I haven't got any of those right now, but I will do that before the next rally. We put them in order. So we've got the top mount, we've got that little spacer, we've got that, then we've got the spring with the little spacer for the, just remember which way around that goes, for the helper spring. So the little spring like that goes underneath it is called a helper. Next, to get the shock absorber out of the body, we need to do the same as we did on the top with that, but on the bottom here. There we go. So that's the lock nut loose. Let's pull the lock nut off. I'm going to put that there, again, in order. Now hopefully this is free, which it is. So we're going to wind that in. There's a thread inside this damper leg here. So if we wind it in clockwise, it will come out the other way. Make sense? There we go. Ready? Ready for extraction. There we go. That's your bump stop. And in there, well, it's very greased actually. There's a lot of grease in there. So I want to clean it all up, double check that everything's all right. All the walls of the shock are all right. Clean everything up, and then we'll grease it up and stick it back together. Lovely. Nice. Nice. So I'm just removing the excess out of the threads, even though we won't be going that high, but you know, it's just good to get these threads all clean. Just get a wire brush in between them all. Now, what would be ideal for this would be a parts cleaner, but my original parts cleaner broke. I had a temporary one, and that broke, and that went back, and then I just never ended up replacing it. So we're going to use brake cleaner and bits and bobs like that to clean these up. See, this in here, this is the scraper seal, is what that's called, and that scrapes the mud off the damper. So you always get stuff built up inside that because it's scraping it off to clean it, to stop it going inside there. Now inside there is full of grease, which I'm happy with, but I'm going to re-grease it. This isn't a rebuild, so this is just a bit of a maintenance job. This is just a quick clean up before I raise it. To do a full rebuild, you'd probably best changing all these scrapers, maybe the bump stop if it's damaged, and if you have any doubt whether your shock absorber's working properly, then again you can do that. You could paint the bodies as well, make them all nice. See, that goes up and down quite nicely, so and it's really solid, so I'm happy with that. This needs a good clean up before we put it back in. Make sure the threads are all good on both ends. But you can see all the mud that's all over it. So we need to get that off. So it's only a quick wipe and this is all really clean again, which is good. Because look at that. Check for any scores, because the scores will they'll pick up the seals and then damage them, and then obviously mud and dirt and whatever will get into your damper and just knacker it up, so you don't want that. Bump stop as well, because of the material they are. You know, if they've been hammered a few times and you've been hammering the bump stops, they do break down eventually. They just turn into nothing. So it's good to check those. This is in really good condition. You could chop those to adjust your bump stop. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm going to get some grease on this and then put it back together. Because I mean, that's a clean damper, that. I'm going to clean that body a bit more. I'm going to grease this up and stick it all back together. And then I'll adjust the height to our works settings. So once your damper's all greased up, stick it back in. Oh, greasy. That looks a mess at the moment, but we will clear that up in a minute. Now you need to try and find the end of your shock then to line up back with the hole in the bottom, and then turn it anti-clockwise to get it to start the thread, and it will pull itself in then. After minutes of fiddling, we've got it to line up, and it's now pulling itself in. Fiddly jobs these, aren't they? Especially when you're on camera and it's live. So any issue I come across on here, you're coming across with me. This is actually the first time I've done this to these dampers, because it was not owned by me before. I've seen people use the gun on those lock rings to undo them and shear the bottom of the damper off, the bottom of the telescope off. I say telescope, the telescopic damper, isn't it? So yeah, shear the bottom off. That's your shock destroyed. That's gone. That's in the bin if that happens. Do everything by hand on this job if you can. I recommend. It does get quite greasy after a while though, and everything's sliding around. But so let's just nip this up. I'll clean this up now like that, because I absolutely caked it in grease. I mean, I didn't fill it, but you know what I mean. I got it everywhere because it's all over my hands and everything. Now, we have got a little issue with the scraper seal on this one. It isn't in brilliant condition. I'm going to have to order a pair, and I'm going to have to do this all over again before the next rally. So it wasn't a total waste of time. We found an issue with it. We want to adjust the height of them anyway, so it was a good excuse to do all that. And just give them a good clean, and then we'll put them back on the car. You know, that's a lot better than it when it came off. So let's get the spring and the top mount all back together, and then we'll have a look at ride heights when it's on the car. The only way to get these beautiful is to get all the springs and things powder coated. But you can do that at your end of season rebuild, can't you? You can just keep them going like this throughout the year, and then end of season, get them all powder coated and all nice and new, ready for the next season. Top mount, like I said, we'll need that rose joint ordering. I mean, what I might do, to be honest, is I'll use it like this in the test, and by then we'll have ordered the bits and we need to check the car over before the actual rally, so I'll change them at that point probably. Another good idea is to cut a piece of foam around the same size as that, with 2 holes like that. Cut a piece of foam, then put it on, because that will stop as much mud going into there, because mud into the rose joint turns into like grinding paste. That's how they wear out. So it's getting late, you know. Doing these videos for you late at night, it's not good, it's not healthy, is it, Chris? All jokes aside, we do love it really. And these are jobs I'd be doing anyway, so I might as well film them. The beauty of rallying and racing is you're always in your shed or your workshop preparing the car. Unless you've got loads of money, you get someone else to do it. Now, I don't think I've missed anything out of that. I mean, you know, take what you will out of this. It is just a maintenance rebuild I've done. So what have I done? Let's just recap on that. I have taken the shock apart, I've re-greased it, I've checked the wiper seal and found that there is damage on it, so we're going to replace it. I've checked the rose joint, which we found has a tiny bit of play, so I'm going to replace that as well. I know what you're thinking, you're going to have to do all that again. Well, yes, but this is the first time I haven't prepped for this. I'm doing it as you see it. So yeah, otherwise, damper's in pretty good condition. So I'm going to give it another bit of a clean round here. I'm not going to go to town and paint it and everything because we are going to be doing a rally quite soon. So maybe end of season, like I said, we can strip it all down, repaint everything, have it all nice to go in the car. But for now, maintenance rebuild, re-greased, and then we'll adjust the platform now so it's higher for gravel. Yeah, and we'll put it back together. That is another job closer to being a gravel car. This is where you need to be an octopus. There we go. Just to show you can do all this in your garage on your own. So you will want to torque all these after. Torque settings probably about 65 Newton meters, but just get them all nipped up for now. And what I'll probably do is when I spanner check the whole car, I'll check that again, because I'll need to check over the whole car after the last rally, because we still haven't done that yet. And then I'll do the same on these two. Hello, are you still here? This might be one of the boringest videos, because there's hardly any action in it. It's going to be just suspension and putting wheels on and things. But some of you might like that. Some of the workshop episodes seem to be quite popular. Let me know if you want one of my hats. Got a hat, Automax hat. Get you one of them if you want one. Let me know. Unless you like the Alley Cat stuff, then we'll get some more of the Alley Cat stuff. Ooh, oh. So that's back together, all bolted up. I will need to put a cable tie back on here. I'll check my platform heights next, and we'll adjust that to the higher position, the gravel setter. Now that all my threads are nice and clean, these will just fly up. You can do it by hand, to be honest. Until it starts getting tight, and then I'll have to use the spanner again. I'm raising it up. I need to be careful not to close that helper spring too much, because it needs to do something. So if you end up winding that right up and it's closed, then the helper's not doing anything. It gives you a bit more progression with that helper. So I'm measuring the height, the platform height off there to the bottom of that lock ring. That's the platform. That's what I call the platform. Anyway. From there to there. Well, that's the platform. That's the nearest place I can measure from, or the most accurate place I can measure from, should I say. I've also got the measurements for the ride height, which you take from the arch to the centre of the wheel, so I can work off that as well and find somewhere in between those that I'm happy with. Obviously, on the test, we'll figure out whether that works for us, which I'm sure it will. What I don't want is it to be too hard. You know, I like quite a soft damper on gravel, which is what you want. Good thing is there's loads of adjustment in this, and it's just great that you don't have to, you know, it's great that you can use one damper and spring setup for everything. Thrilling stuff, this. I told you this was going to be an exciting episode. So we're roughly about 20 or 30 mil higher than the tarmac setup, roughly. We don't need it to be massively high, we just need a bit more ground clearance. So there, I'm happy with it there. What I'll do is we'll set them both to that. Once I've stripped the other side down and cleaned that, we'll set them to there. We'll lower the car down. I'll run it backwards and forwards over the ramp just to let it settle a bit, and then I'll measure the arch gap, and if it's close to the Nissan setup, then that will be good. Then again, I've got a bit of a dented arch this side, so I don't know how accurate that's going to be. So I'll use the other arch. So I'm not going to lock these off completely, but I'm just going to wind it right up so it's in the right place. So the front is all mocked up, ready. We're going to do the backs now, get the rear springs changed, and then once I put it on the ground, I can see whereabouts we are then. I'll be honest, the springs I've got, it says you can use standard, as long as you get a good quality. The standard height is what a lot of people use, and what even the works team used for a bit. So they should be a little bit longer than these. These are definitely a tarmac spring. So I'll put them next to each other when I get them off and see what they're like. But it's pretty simple to do this. If I remember rightly, it was only the shock off, and you should be able to bend it and get it out. So bear with me, and I'll get these off and we'll have a look at them. Yeah? Welcome to underneath. I'm going to now get some of the mud and grime off. I'm going to undo those bolts there to drop the damper out. Jesus Christ. No wonder all these professional programs like undo everything ready. Because then you don't have to see that bit then, do you? Me making faces like I'm pooing myself. Nobody wants to see that. This is handy just as like an extra person to support things. Probably be alright, I just can't remember actually. Go. This might be a bit fiddly now. I need to get that spring out of there. So I'll meet you back here when I've got it out. There it is. High back tarmac spring. Now let's compare these. You can see this one's a lot higher. This is the standard spring, which is what they use for gravel, and this is the tarmac spring. Notice the coils closer together there, and this one there's a lot bigger gaps between the coils. So that should be perfect for gravel. Now let's try and get that in. We'll get both of those in, we'll get it down, see where it sits. Micro life is all coming back to me now. I'm having flashbacks of 2000 and wherever it was. Right, that's one spring in. I'm going to do the other side in a minute, but let me just nip this up. Right then, one done. Previous owner must have big muscles. There we go, there's another one out. We've gone from the Potenza rally wheels, which are 14-inch. They're the ones we used for tarmac. We've gone back to the Revolution wheels. These are 13-inch. And we've got a 165/80/13. Now, when I used to rally a Micra, we used to run a 65 profile tyre, normally Yokohama's, but they're really hard to get hold of now. So I do a lot with Pirelli. So Ivor and Steve Harkness, he's been on an episode before. He kindly gave me these. These are 165/80/13. Basically the front end of an Escort. These would go on. These are a GM6, so like a medium compound. I think they will be perfect for what we need. I don't like having an 80 because it's quite a tall tyre. There's a lot of lean in the tyre, but yeah, I think it'll be all right. I mean, I've not used a Micra with this tyre on. I've always used the 65 profile, so yeah, be good to see in the test how that handles, and you know if it's any different to what I'm used to. But I'm sure we'll get around. So let's get these on the car and drop it down. All the wheels are on, suspension's altered. I'm going to drop it down, I'm going to move it onto a flat surface, let the suspension settle, and then I'll let you have a look, see how far off we are. So there it sits pretty even at the moment. I'll need everything to settle and then I'll measure it again. But that is a lot higher. So they say to do it from there to the wing edge, which is 540, and the rear is 540. So that is bang on level, that is. So yeah, I need to run this about now and test it. But I mean, looking at it, it's sitting pretty nice. It's bang on. So I hope you enjoyed that little episode. It was just something small. You kind of saw it as I was doing it. I hadn't prepped it beforehand or anything. I just pulled the damper off, re-greased it, showed you how to do it, put the rear shocks on, and then we've got it pretty level, really. It's actually, the arch height is bang on level, so we might need that to settle a bit. I think the rear shocks are going to settle and go down slightly once they've settled. So, but we'll do a bit of testing, a bit of driving around. Don't take this to everything. So what I'm trying to say is some suspension systems are different on different rally cars. This just happens to be pretty basic. You can't always use the same springs, and you can't always use standard springs on some rally cars. It just happens to be that the Micra was, back in the day, they were catering for budget, really, entry level, and keeping everything fair, like a challenge. So that's why this is quite simple to do, and that's why we've chosen this. So it keeps on the budget theme as well. So yeah, we've used the existing springs and dampers. We've just raised the platform, and on the back we put a set of standard springs which are higher than the tarmac ones. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. Some of you might learn something from it. Some of you might think that my mechanical skills are atrocious, but that's for you to decide. I don't mind at all. So the next episode for the Micra, I think we do need to do a few more bits. I need to give it a full spanner check. Everything needs checking over on the car after the last rally. I want to put some arch liners in it, and just generally go through the car, make sure it's ready to do a gravel rally. So I might bring another episode of us prepping this if we've got enough to do. Or the next time you see it, maybe we'll book a test and we can do some testing and see if everything works. We've also got other episodes coming out before then, so yeah, just keep going, keep liking, keep subscribing. We bloody love it. So yeah, thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye now.